Hey, good Monday morning, everybody. BAM Weather Meteorologist Brett Waltz here, giving you a long-range forecast update and an update on the derecho threat, the severe storm cluster threat as we go through this evening, Monday, July 28th. I'm going to spend the first portion of the video talking about this threat because it will be impactful to some critical areas across the growing region into parts of Minnesota and Iowa and South Dakota. A lot of corn growing and the crop overall in pretty good shape, and this could be an impactful storm for those areas. So I want to start out with that. I'm going to start out with the current radar right now. You can see storms on the radar across eastern parts and central parts of North Dakota this morning. You can see a severe storm moving through Bismarck right now. This is not the main wave that we're going to be looking at. I'm more interested in this activity that's ongoing out here in eastern parts of Montana. You can kind of see the northwest to southeast nature of that. We will continue to watch more storm activity fire off as we work throughout the afternoon across South Dakota, which will eventually turn into our storm cluster threat. Taking a look at the Storm Prediction Center's outlook in terms of the severe weather threat for today, this is a moderate risk, a 4 on a scale of 5. If you watched our AM Ag Weather Report and you've watched some of our insights, I would not be shocked, and just in terms of the corridor of the highest threat, if it needs to be extended a little bit further down to the south and to the east. If you've been with us through some of these storms over the years, they have the tendency to dive further south and east than modeled. And we're going to highlight that in this video here. Regardless, if you're in the orange area, you're in the red area, you need to be on the lookout for an intense cluster of storms with widespread damaging winds, and again, that potential derecho threat as we work throughout the afternoon and evening. If you're not familiar, derecho is a damaging cluster of storms that produces widespread wind gusts of 58 plus miles per hour, aka the severe wind criteria, and it goes for 400 miles. I think that we are going to probably get that with this particular setup today, and I'm going to highlight why as we go throughout this video. So if we take a look here at the simulated radar, guys, you can see the time here in the bottom left. This is the NAM3 model from earlier this morning. There really isn't a model that's doing great right now, but I felt like this one highlights the progression and the dynamics with this setup the best. And if we take a look, you can see it kind of trying to see this activity in eastern Montana right now, diving further down to the south and to the east. What will happen? These storms that will move through central parts of South Dakota will become more organized as we work throughout the afternoon and the evening. This is 6 p.m. via the model. I would not be shocked if this speeds up by an hour or two. So 4 or 5 o'clock, not out of the question of this cluster moving through eastern parts of South Dakota. What you'll start to note is the activity really begin to get organized here across South Dakota, across Minnesota, by the time we work towards probably about 7 o'clock. So this area in here, widespread damaging wind threat at this point, and then again, kind of your main corridor right in the middle where you really see this Boeing segment. Now, don't take it verbatim. It could be down towards Brookings. You can actually see a secondary area this model's trying to see down here, but right in the middle of this cluster, there's probably going to be a more intense area of wind that could exceed 80 to 90 plus mile per hour wind gusts. That can cause huge damage. It can knock plenty of corn down, flatten corn. It can cause major damage to buildings. And obviously, you would not want to be outside when that is going on. So please be sure to plan ahead. I also think it's worth noting that these clusters tend to move very, very quickly. And so you will have less time to prepare than normal if you see it on radar. You see it and it's 30 miles away from you. It's probably going to be here very, very quickly. This cluster could be moving 60 plus miles per hour. That is something to keep in mind as you go throughout the afternoon. As we continue to go along here, here's what we look like by the time we work towards about 9 o'clock or so, moving towards the Minneapolis metro area into northern parts of Iowa. And this model, again, kind of highlights what we were talking about of this activity and this intense storm cluster surviving further south into the east than what some of the other model guidance would indicate. And it's why we think, again, that moderate to an enhanced risk could tick a little bit further south into the east on the next Storm Prediction Center update. But you can see once it gets down towards Cedar Rapids and Dubuque, beginning to weaken as we work later on into this evening, fizzling out by the time it works into northern parts of Illinois. Taking a look here at the upper level setup, I've got a 3-panel here of the sim radar, our instability, our low level jet. We have a strong low level jet, so a lot of wind energy going into the storm, extreme amounts of instability here, which will fuel intense thunderstorms. And if we scroll over and we look at the bulk wind shear as well, we have an insane amount of wind shear associated with this cluster. Anytime you're getting up 50, 60 plus knots, you have an insane amount of wind energy, which again supports the threat for very intense wind gusts and again that derecho signal. In fact, don't take the wind gust verbatim, but I'm going to show you here the wind gust from a couple of pieces of model guidance. And if we click around, you can see model guidance is picking up on the 80, 90 plus mile per hour wind gusts. In fact, this model trying to highlight more than 100 mile per hour wind gusts being possible with this cluster. Again, don't take the spot verbatim, don't take the exact speed verbatim, but it highlights the potential with this cluster. If we go and look at the HRRR, a different model, again, slightly different spot, but it's also highlighting 80 to 90 plus mile per hour wind gusts. We take a look at a different piece of model guidance here, guys, and kind of continue to go through. It's a little bit different on the precise timing, a little bit slower, but again, 80 to 90 mile per hour wind gusts. So multiple different models right now indicating the potential for extreme wind gusts associated with this storm cluster. It needs to be taken very, very seriously. Just to map it out and make it a little bit easier to visualize, here's the map that we made this morning. We have more specific details breaking down the threats in the Clarity platform, more specifics on the precise timing, and we will have updates that we will send directly to your device as we go throughout the day. So something to keep in mind, be paying very close attention to updates as we go throughout the day and specifics on timing, because it's going to be critical to prepare and be proactive as we go throughout the afternoon and the evening. But here's a generalized idea. The pink area is where we're targeting for the highest risk for 80 to 90 mile per hour wind gusts, could be even locally higher. If you're in that red shaded area, still probably dealing with widespread damaging wind gusts and severe storms. But again, that more intense corridor possible in east central South Dakota, southwestern Minnesota into north central parts of Iowa, again, as we work into this evening. So be sure to stay prepared, keep an eye on things, and be sure that you have your notifications turned on as you get into this afternoon and this evening. With all that being said, let's move on to the extended range outlook and touch on updates with that. And I want to highlight, where the storm cluster is going is where it's been so active for so long. Last 30 days, just incredibly active here across a good portion of the growing region. Really the only areas that have been a little bit drier, parts of the Western Plains, parts of the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes that you can see in here. But for the most part, vast majority of the region has had widespread rain and beneficial rain to help the crop grow very well across this region. So all things considered, it's been an active pattern, and it's been a mild one too, especially to the east. 4 or 5 degrees warmer than normal for a 30-day stretch is pretty notable in the summertime. And the eastern ag belt into the northeastern part of the country, mid-Atlantic, has been very warm. And guys, this type of a setup is something that data has not done a good job seeing in the extended range. They continue to try to put heat too far west in the extended range, only for it to roll forward warmer further to the east. I do think that's something we need to continue to keep in mind as we work over the coming weeks. Here's a look, with that being said, of the forecast the next 2 weeks. In the short term, guys, we'll have a cold front that will move in later this week into the weekend and to start out August. Cooler than normal temperatures across the majority of the ag belt, and that will continue to bleed further south and east with time. It will be active as that happens, as that front sweeps in. The central plains, the northern plains, parts of the western plains, and into the Ohio Valley should have ample moisture opportunities. Taking a look here at the forecast into the second week, or our second forecast week here, August 4th to August 10th, above normal temperatures returning. The start of the period, maybe some lingering cooler air, but as we've talked about at length, pattern trending warmer again as we head into the second week of the month. Data really beginning to highlight that very well. We ended up using the AIFS here because the tendency, as we just touched on, has been for the warmth to bleed further east than modeled, and it's highlighting that very well, in our opinion, with an above normal pattern for the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and the Great Lakes into the week 2 time frame. And as this transition from cooler air to warmer air happens, will likely also begin to get a little bit more active, at least for a time, as we go throughout that week 2 time frame. Here's a look at the evolution. First 5 days of August, widespread cooler than normal temperatures for much of the country. And then the warmth comes back. Widespread warmer than normal temperatures into the second week of the month for much of the country. Again, if there's a tendency here, watch for the warmth to come a little bit further east with time, more like what this AIFS is trying to indicate. I still think the GEFS with its hot plains idea is out to lunch. That has not verified once this summer so far consistently. And if you look at the upper level pattern, I'm already seeing tendencies begin to come back of ridge setting up around here, maybe some kind of a ridge in here, which would lead to cold fronts at times through this region in here. And so that's been the pattern all summer long. I'm seeing more of that in the extended range. And as that happens again, it's going to favor moisture opportunities. Now, I do think down the road, we need to watch the risk that this could pull further to the north, opening up some drier time in the Ohio Valley. We've had that in our weeks 3 and 4 outlook. If we take a look, as this intensifies, here's your primary flow right through here. If this continues to intensify, it goes further north, a little bit further south through here, may begin to trend a little bit drier. So that is something to keep in mind in the extended range. And I think partly that could be related to the trend in our global winds. The trend has been to go lower and lower with time, diving way below normal once again, which favors hotter than normal conditions as a whole. Again, especially a little bit further to the east. And in terms of moisture, it favors maybe some moisture in the upper Midwest. You can kind of see through here. Wouldn't be shocked if maybe it's even a touch too far south there. But that would leave the door for some drier opportunities through here. And so with that being said, you can see the GEFS trying to pick up on that idea in the extended range. Overall, I like what our outlook was for weeks 3 and 4. I would say, if anything, for precipitation, the risk would be that this needs to come a little bit further down to the south and to the west, and that we would need to trend things slightly wetter through this area in here. But all things considered, I don't think this is too far off the idea heading through the middle part of August. One thing we will need to keep a little bit more of an eye on down the road, I'll mention as a risk, typhoon activity beginning to ramp up. You can see it's very messy of a signal right now. West moving typhoons typically lead to hotter conditions. Recurving typhoons moving north and east tend to favor cooler conditions. We have a little bit of both right now. So this is a wild card that we will need to monitor as we move things forward. Guys, that's all I have for today. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day.